On this episode of Before Brunch, we're talking all about trauma and healing. Today's guests include Gold Star spouse Jane L. Smith, author Jasmine Smith, jewelry designer Nicole Good, and Parents Against Bullying Virginia founder Shantae Miller. Thanks for tuning into Before Brunch TV. Today we're talking all about trauma, and that shows up from the loss of a partner to some devastating health news or some family issues. And today I have some amazing guests joining me. Jasmine, Shani, Nicole, and Jan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say thank you all so much for being here and being open and willing to share your story. I know this is not easy, but I'm confident that through you all's stories, and we're really going to focus on the healing part, that somebody watching will be healed and be able to directly connect and relate to you all. So I just want to start off with, can you share a little bit about your story and why you're here?
So I had childhood trauma. It happened in two different ways, and it was my dad. He had a drug addiction. And so I saw a lot of that play out in my mom and dad's marriage and in our home life, thinking that, okay, are we going to be abandoned? Are we going to abandon him? And then also I was sexually assaulted by a family member. So that trauma looked a lot of bit different than the trauma of, my dad being on drugs. So that happened between the ages of 5 and 7. And sorry, guys. And not really understanding what was taking place. So I tucked it away in a safe box and forgot all about it until I got pregnant with my first child. And that's when I sat down, thought about what took place, was trying to figure out if it actually took place or not, but I knew something wrong had happened. And so I actually spoke to my husband about it, and he was the first person that I talked to about it.
I guess the traumatic thing that I will share is the thing of being a parent. When you're a parent, you want to be the protector. You have the instinct of protection. And when you decide to open up and kind of open your kids to different things that you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try it. And then you try it. And what I mean by that is I'm the mother of 3, but I have 2 twin girls, well, a set of twins. And I used to be that mom that would take my kids back and forth to school. They never rode a bus. And the time that I decided to let them ride the bus, I didn't know that my daughter was being bullied. And the 3rd week on the school bus ride, short version of it, my daughter was kicked in the head for a total of 17 minutes on the school bus, to where the doctor said 3 inches to the left, she would have died instantly on the bus. So standing at the bus stop and hearing the person who did this, and that person cursing at you, telling you that what she had just done to your daughter and that she's going to do it again the next day, and you running home with your daughter seizing in your arms, is very traumatic. Like, my decision that I thought I was opening up my kids to have the quote unquote normal, being able to be with their peers and grow with their peers, I put her in a life danger situation. And I felt guilty of that. I'm just glad that she's still here. Mm-hmm. And I won't stop pushing because of that, because bullying is no joke. Mm-hmm. Because I almost lost mine in regards to bullying.
Yeah, and you created something beautiful out of that, and we'll get into that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I will be the first to
No, you're fine.
So I am a widow twice. My first husband, he died in a tragic car crash on his job. He was in a tractor trailer. And so I met my second husband and was in fear, didn't want to get married again because I'm like, I don't want this to happen. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, after 6 years, we found out that he had pancreatic cancer. And so living with him and fighting with him, just that battle for almost 2 years was really traumatic for me and my children. You know, we have 3 children, so we're still going through that process right now. It'll be a year in a few days, so it's still fresh.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan, for sharing. I remember being around during that time and
By my side.
yeah, like the strength that you just showed, and I think that's something that all women just have to just pull it together in times of, you know, trauma and desperation. But I thank you for sharing.
You know, you caught me off guard when you said, "Why are you here?" Because my entire life I've been asking myself, "Why are you here? Why am I here?" I was born to a teenage mother who was a drug addict. My father was a drug dealer. My mother was forced to keep us because my grandmother said, "Oh, you're gonna have those kids," because my father was a drug dealer. But my mother was a teenager who hadn't even graduated high school. And so you can imagine that my life has been one traumatic event after the other. When you have a mother who's a drug dealer, she'll leave you with anyone for anything. And so I have practically been on my own taking care of my siblings since I was 11 years old. Went to the military right after high school. I was sexually assaulted while I was in the military. I was harassed due to racism. I was also in a very abusive relationship with the very first man who ever called me pretty. He ended up going to prison for attempted murder, and I have a 13-year-old daughter with him. He's not in her life. That's traumatic. Still, my entire life, I have always continued to try to be as resilient as possible and just keep it going. I think it's just who I am. And so many people will look at all of those things that I've been through and they'll say, "Oh, but you're so strong and you keep going." Well, strong is relative. And I have a daughter, and I've never wanted my daughter to experience some of the things that I've experienced. So I've tried to go out of my way to provide her a lifestyle, trying to protect her. And I believe that I've not been the greatest in that. And so being a mother has also allowed me to reflect on my relationship with my mother, which is why I was writing the book that I'm writing. And then last year, right in the midst of this, right at the beginning of the pandemic, my life just felt like everything was coming together. Everything that I had dreamed of, all of the trauma that I had been through, it just seemed like, wow, I'm finally happy. I met this wonderful man. We were planning a wedding this time last year, actually, and unfortunately, he was one of the very first victims of COVID. He's only 32 years old, and he had diabetes. So he passed away on March 30th, 2020, 10 days after we closed on a house.
Thank you for sharing. I remember I met you at an event maybe like a year and a half ago. I think that's where we first met, and I remember you had your daughter with you. And just seeing you, like I never would have known your story prior to, and then I think we became Facebook friends, and I saw your story play out when you talked about your fiance, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I never would have known. And when you talk about like what the face of like hurt and pain looks like, I mean, we're out walking every day and acting like everything is fine. We're not acting like, but we're just trying to, we have kids. We're just trying to keep it together for our, our families or our friends. So kind of talk to me about what are some of the range of emotions that you go through when you experience your form of trauma and what you experience? Because I know there's, it's a wave.
I mean, the very first thing you think, why me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do? God, why? Is it something that I did or said? Can you show it to me? So I think that's the first thing is, why is this happening to me? That shoulda, coulda, woulda, those stages. And when we talk about trauma is deeply related to grief. And a lot of people don't think of what trauma is and what trauma looks like and what grief looks like. And grief looks different for everyone.
As she was talking, and I know I shared with you guys about with my daughter, what happened with my daughters. But it's almost like you feel like sometimes, and I don't know if you guys, and you can contest to this, if this is how you felt too. It's almost like you're going through something, and then you feel like you're right there, that you've gotten over that particular hump, and you're like, okay, I see the finish line of this thing that I've gone through. Then something else smacks you right dead in the face. And what I mean by that with me is, I was right there that had happened with my daughters in the 6th grade. I had gotten them to senior year, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm right there. They get ready to go off to college. I can live my best life. Well, May of the year that they were going to graduate, I was diagnosed with head and neck cancer. And the first thing that I thought of was I was just going to die. I mean, because when you think of cancer, you feel like she said, you're just going to die, And I was like, I'm just right here at the finish line with my girls. I got them through that traumatic event in the 6th grade, got them to the 12th grade, and now you're telling me I have cancer in my throat and head and neck? So that's what I do, is talk. And how am I going to advocate for them? And what's going to happen? Am I going to see them go to college? Is this the end? And, I feel like he gives us the toughest battles to the toughest soldiers. We're soldiers. We're built for this, even though we don't know the reason for him giving us these type of situations to deal with. But these situations aren't for us. And this is what I have learned to know. They're not for us. They're for someone else that's coming behind us, or that we're going to come in contact with on our journey to help them get through it. Man, woman, chick, child, what have you. But there's some tough things. And sometimes we're like, well, how am I going to get through the next traumatic thing? And that's so I get it when you say, all of my life, this, and this. And everyone has a story, but what's what we do with it. We got to keep pushing.
Yeah.
I would kind of have to piggyback off of what she just said. We went to therapy. I started, talking to my therapist about what took place in my childhood. And right when the pandemic hit, I was kind of dealing with those emotions and what was taking place inside of me, but also what was taking place around me. And I think that maybe around May or so, my husband told me some stuff that I was not expecting at all. And I'm just like, okay, so I just got through the emotions from my childhood trauma, and now I'm headed right back into the trauma circle, because though this is a different type of trauma, it's still trauma. So this is hitting me in a certain way that I didn't expect for this year. But I also think that when you ask God for certain things, he gives them to you. You just don't know how he's going to give them to you. And our word for last year was foundation. And so he pretty much is breaking and tearing apart, reconstructing our foundation, and it looks completely different. And the stages for me are just, it's something that you have to go through. You grieve what your childhood could have looked like. You grieve what your marriage could have looked like. But really, was it your expectations of what that should look like? Or were you looking to God to control each and every moment and get you through those things? So that is what I'm looking at right now.
I think for me, it was more confusion because I'm under 40 and have experienced being a widow twice. So just doing a lot of soul searching, and it's like, okay, well, what's my purpose now? I'm a therapist, but you take joy and pride in being someone's partner, someone's life partner, someone's spouse, the mother to their children. So just searching for answers in the Bible. I remember reading one story, and it was this woman named Tamar, and she went through one husband. He died. He wasn't like the best person in the world, but then her father-in-law gave him another son, and he wound up passing away. And then it's like, okay, after he passed away, it's like, what is she gonna do? Is she destined to be alone? And so she actually took another route and became a prostitute and like copped, her father-in-law, and it's like, okay, Lord, are you telling me I need to go hooking?
Oh gosh. No, you're not going there.
Like, oh.
But it's like, okay, is that how, if I'm just supposed to be a prostitute, Lord, just say that. If I'm supposed to do ratchet things with my friends, just say that. Am I not supposed to be, someone's, happily ever after? So, like I said, it was just a lot of confusion. And I'm still thinking about that. I'm still pondering about that. Someone, like I said, being under 40, and you wouldn't assume that this is the face of a widow. So, like I said, I'm still pondering on it, but I know that there's purpose behind this. I know that I am strong enough for this, and I know that God is going to see me through this.
That kind of leads me into my next question. How have you all been able to get through everyday life while life is still happening?
Being raised by my grandmother, and I never really ever saw her like break down or complain or just not get up and do her daily thing, go to work, be a grandma, just handle her business out in the community or whatever. It's like that's what I've known to do. So it's like, get yourself together, pull it together. And it was always the what goes on in your house stays in your house type of thing. So I still kind of hold that as I don't look like what I've been through. I don't have the rolling credits of really I'm toe up right now. But you looking at me like, oh, she got it going on, girl, inside I am broken, but I don't want my kids. I don't want to pour that into my children. Like my grandmother, I know she didn't want to pour that into me. She didn't want to use that as an excuse to not keep going. So, I mean, is it a bad thing? I don't know, because that's all I know is to get it going. If someone else isn't doing it, you got to keep doing it. Like, get up and go.
See, I was going to say, like, is that doing us a disservice? Because I think people watching or people see like our social media highlights can look at all of us and be like, oh, they're good. They got it together. Like, they look good or whatever. But imagine telling your story like you are now, and you could be helping heal somebody else so they don't have to keep holding stuff in. Like, I feel like our future generations, like our grandmother's generation, I feel like while I think they are amazing, I think a lot of times it did us a disservice because here we are now, like crumbling on the inside because we feel like, oh, we got to keep it at home. We can't share our story. So, I mean, I think it's great that you're learning and trying to figure out, like, was that the right way to go?
In therapy, too.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay, but what you going to do to be okay?
You go to church and go to therapy.
Yes, at the same time. God and therapy, God plus therapy. So, and that was a thing that we didn't talk about in my younger years was therapy. Therapy what? You crazy. So it was like a stigmatism. I know in the Black culture it is. So, but it's a good thing. You need to go talk to somebody if it's not, if you're feeling that way, it's okay to go talk to someone.
So the name of my book is actually called Trauma from My Mama. And it just follows the journey of my childhood from my perspective, and then my journey mothering as an adult, which has allowed me to go back and look at my mother, all of the anger and the resentment that I held towards her and my father, and mostly her, because she was the one that was there. We never talked about what my dad didn't do. And so I think in the Black community, we are equipped and almost born with the resiliency to deal with trauma. And we've just, like she said, what happens in this house stays in this house. We've been conditioned from such a young age to just get up and go and don't worry about it, don't talk about it. We don't want other people knowing what's going on in our household. And the thing is, the greatest release that you can have is to know that you're not the only one struggling with it. The idea of me too, someone saying, you too, I'm not the
It's so freeing.
What? Yeah. That is release.
So for me, it's been trying to hold on to like this stoic kind of woman and really not put my feelings out there in regards to what it is that I'm going through. But through the middle of last year to this year, I've learned that vulnerability is key in going through something so traumatic. And really opening up and talking to close friends and talking to both of our families about some of the things that we have gone through and are going through currently. I think that that has helped in my everyday kind of pushing through. But I mean, to be completely honest, there are some days where I literally cannot stop thinking about it. And it's just always on my mind. Or there'll be days where I'm completely paralyzed with sadness or like grieving of my past marriage. But then I have to look at it like, okay, God, you're doing a new thing in us and through us. So what does that look like? What is that supposed to look like from the inside out? And what is that supposed to look like to our friends, our family, people that don't know us on the street? And really just understanding how to speak out and not hold it all in. Because again, my mom was the same way. She held it all together when my dad was, addicted to drugs. She held it completely together. I don't think I saw her cry. I may have seen her cry one time, but any other time it was just like, we're going to be okay. Let's move forward. Let's push through. And I never saw emotions in regards to that. And we all have emotions. We just have to learn how to not let our emotions get the best of us in times where God is trying to speak directly to us. So I think that's how I get through every day. It's not easy. It's literally some days I just don't want to get out of the bed. But I think that therapy has helped a lot, really honing into who God is and his characteristics, his Holy Spirit, really listening to the Holy Spirit and the unction of where he is guiding me and my husband and my family. That has really helped a lot through the process.
I think just honesty, vulnerability is amazing, but being honest with where you are. If someone asks, "Hey Jan, how are you?" Instead of saying, "Oh, I got it, I'm okay." No, I'm on the floor. So allowing your family and your loved ones to give you comfort in your time. There is no time frame that we can all get over it. There is no expectation. We shouldn't feel like there is that expectation or after a year or so you should be over it.
Right.
It's not. If I'm still grieving, it is what it is.
I never realized last year, how are you, became it was an insult to me. When someone said, how are you? I hated it. It just made me feel like, what do you mean? Why are you even asking me that? What do you want me to say? Good, I'm fine. I'm not. I ain't. I'm not. And so one of the things that I've tried to work on is telling people. I actually sent out a text message to every single contact in my phone. And I said, please do not ask me how I am. Ask me if I ate. Check on Brianna, my daughter. I gave them a list of other things to ask me instead of how are you? Because it just brought up so many emotions when someone said, how are you?
Yeah,
And I'm
triggered.
like, I don't know what, I'm alive. And you know what, to not be rude to people, what I started saying when someone said, how are you? I would just say, I'm alive. That's it. I'm alive, I'm here, I'm breathing.
That was a part of your process, though. And it's still a part of your process of getting through and going through and getting to the next step. But it's like a sore. When you cut yourself, you bleed, right? You may see the white meat. And then it starts to, it might have a little pink surface. Then it might start having a little little crusty little brown surface. Then it started really having the smooth surface again. So it's just the process of that hurt, that wound, and it's starting to heal. And sometimes it might come back open. So you got to treat it with some more ointment. So it's okay to go through those emotions. Those emotions, like we said earlier, are things that we've got to go through. Because it's not for us. It might be for your baby daughter, right? Mm-hmm. It might be for your daughter, or it might be for someone that you come in contact with, and it hurts. It's like a blender. When we go to blend our food, going through this healthy thing, we put it in there. It's got to be churned, right? Them fruits don't feel good being churned up. They got to go to another. They got to go from solid to liquid to even looser until we add something in to maybe want to make it thicker. Now we don't want to like that. We want to loosen it up again, so we got to churn it some more. Right. That hurt. Mm-hmm. So it's like us. That's like our lives. We got to go in this blender and we got to go through the churning process and we got to get in there and it's got to stop a little bit.
Come on with this analogy.
So it's the process, the 1, 2, 3 on that blender. We got to go through that until we get back to whatever it is that we want, the consistency. We have to stop trying to paint the pretty picture. Yeah, we cute sometimes, but sometimes we ugly as I don't know what behind the scene. So sometimes we may have to show that.
I think it's important to be mindful also of who you share with. Because
That's true.
What I have learned on this journey is that not everybody is for me. Okay. And I don't hold it against them either. Right. Because not when someone says, how are you doing? And the moment that you decide, okay, I'm going to really tell you how I'm doing, they're going to look at you and they'll say, oh, okay.
That's true.
And I've learned not to take offense in when someone doesn't respond in the way that I would like them to respond, because I realize that not everybody is dealing with their own type of trauma. Yep. And they don't always know how to respond because they're still trying to filter through theirs. Yeah. And sometimes your truth could be a shock to them and something they'll say that, that's, and they might feel some embarrassment. And so I've learned who to talk to, and then also not to be offended, because you just never know.
You have those that P-R-E-Y on you, and you have those that P-R-A-Y, the pray and the pray. There's two different types of pray. So you are right. Yeah. You got to be ready.
Real. I appreciate you ladies for opening up and sharing, and I am just praying for you, P-R-A-Y, for you. And, I think everybody's just on this journey and we're all healing together. And so anybody who's watching who, you might feel alone or be in this situation, I want you to know there are women, all of us out there going through everything, whether we openly say it or not. So I appreciate y'all's candid conversation. And for those of you who are watching, thanks for tuning in. And you can find more information in previous episodes on beforebrunchtv.com. We'll see you next time.